Hey everybody, and welcome to Let's Look at Cubemen 2. This is the sequel to a game that I did a Let's Look at of last year. I remember playing Cubemen, I remember uploading a video of Cubemen, and I remember a little bit of what I said, but I don't remember too much about actually playing the game itself, so it's been nice to kind of jump back into this now that the sequel is out on Steam. This is I hesitate to say this because I know people are going to call me on my shit, but to me it looks like a voxel-based strategy/tower defense game. There's objective modes like capture the flag, skirmish, some kind of like asymmetrical tower modes, or reverse tower defense, I should say. But at its heart, this is a tower defense game. It's available on Steam. I believe it's meant to be $6 normally. The store page says the new releases list says this is at $6 for its opening week sale. But then you go to the store page and it says it's $4 for its opening week sale, and you can get a 2-pack for $5. So, you know, your guess is as good as mine. In any case, we're gonna jump in here. As you can see, I've played a few levels of Cubemen 2 here so far, and you know, it seems pretty easy to jump into, whether that's kind of latent muscle or brain memory. Brain memory apparently just being, you know, the actual memory that we are commonly familiar with, but from Cubemen 1, or my time with Cubemen 1, or the fact that it's easily accessible, I guess kind of remains to be seen. But in any case, why don't we jump into a level that I haven't played yet. We'll play Condemned here, and this represents the campaign, by the way. So there's no overarching story or anything like that. The campaign is just a list of levels. It looks like there's, you know, maybe 12 to 15 levels here. It's kind of hard to say. It might be 20. We could count it, but I don't have that kind of time, as I totally botched that meme. In any case, we're going to play this. This is from 3 Sprockets, by the way, the developer/publisher, because I believe it is self-published. So, let's go to our basic options here. We have a lot of possible options. This single-player only mode, defense is just your standard tower defense, where sometimes you'll have to defend, you know, one enemy base that's sending units towards you. Sometimes you will have to defend up to 5, I believe. But that's going to depend on the difficulty you set it at. I don't know why it's set on easy normally, but that might be a smart idea for us, because the game has not necessarily been difficult so far, but certainly not a cakewalk either. Rescue is basically you have 2 bases, and one of your bases sends units towards your other base, and you have to defend them as they go, and the more people you save, the more points you get. There are also these kind of like multiplayer modes here that are competitive, and the way that this works, you can play against bots. We might actually do one of those because I haven't done any of them yet, but there is also online multiplayer here. As to, you know, the question of whether or not there's a community, which is a very meaningful question, I don't know, but maybe that's why we'll try some online play as we do this. But in any case, let's just start out playing the basic tower defense mode, because this is the mode that most people are going to be familiar with, as well as the mode that probably most people are going to be interested in if they're buying this game, I feel. Alright, so that's, our base is the blue one here, and the enemy base is the red one. Now, on the left, you can see this sidebar, which consists of all of the cubes that we can possibly create. So what I want to take a look out for here is how these enemies move and the path that they're going to take to try to get to my base. And in the meantime, I'm just going to send out some units to kind of intercept them, basically. It looks like they're going to go around here and maybe come up through the back, but it's kind of hard to say. So I'm just spawning a number of the very basic units in the game, or the most very basic units in the game, called Grill. These are just like your standard infantry kind of shooting dudes. We can upgrade them. This will increase their range and I believe their damage. And the currency in this game, by the way, is a currency known as cubes, as you might expect. Every time you kill an enemy, you will see like a plus sign and a number next to it. This indicates the number of cubes that you gain for killing that enemy. I'm getting my ass kicked, kind of. Not necessarily my ass kicked, because I'm doing pretty well on a survival front right now, but I really should not be losing units this early. I think I shouldn't have my infantry this close to kind of harm's way, but in any case, it's going okay so far. So as you build more units, the cost of that unit goes up. So you saw that the grill cost us only 10 cubes to build the first time. Every subsequent one is going to cost us 1 extra. So in this way, it kind of balances. It means that it becomes less valuable to just spam the same kind of unit over and over and over. So let's spawn a flint unit here, which is a flamethrower. And I'm going to pick up this crate. So this is one of the unique elements from a tower defense standpoint of Cubemen 2. There are these random drops that happen, and if you pick those up, all of your units were upgraded. Fantastic. So this should mean they have a higher range and maybe higher damage, although I'm not 100% sure on that. I really suck at using these flamethrower units because they're pretty weak from a health standpoint, and they almost always get killed for me very early, but I'll just put him here, and maybe I'll upgrade him so that his range is high enough that maybe he can hit enemies before the enemies hit him. Obviously, good kind of crowd control unit, but he's just going to be hitting the boxes here. Might actually be a good idea to put him, like, up here, so he can still hit the enemies. Unless he has to be on exactly the same plane. It looks like he might have to be on the same plane as the enemies, in which case, obviously, this is not really the best course of action. Maybe I'll just have him stand here and spam the shit out of them. Actually, you know what's happening right now? I believe the grill is just shooting him as soon as he comes out. So we'll have to wait for some hardier enemies, if you will, Now, the structure of the levels as it goes, you can see this kind of like, and I guess you can call it a square, because that's, you know, literally what geometric shape it is. But it's up here in the top right. This indicates the wave that we are on, and kind of the progress within that wave. And the rounds go to wave 20, and obviously things are going to get more and more difficult as time goes on. I'm just going to save up for another mortar here, because those are some of my favorite units to use in the game. And then I'll use that mortar to pick up this crate. The crates have differential effects. Some of them will cause your units to all upgrade, as you saw. We already lost our flamethrower, as I explained. I'm absolutely god-awful with them. Some of them will cause them to just, like, do a ton of damage to enemy waves, which is kind of what I'm hoping that this one is going to be right here. Kind of like a bingo button from Smash TV. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And some of them, as well, will just give you like a huge bonus in cubes. So you might just get like 120 cubes from something like that. So it adds a little bit of an active element to tower defense. I mean, not that tower defense games are necessarily passive, but, you know, there are times when you often just kind of sit there and wait for things to happen if you're already done kind of optimally placing towers. Now, I'm playing pretty badly here, and, you know, as much as I've talked about how active that element of Cubemen 2 is, this is also a game that I've spent a lot of time kind of tabbing out of. I'm just going to upgrade some of these guys so they have increased range, and then I'm going to put them a little further back so that they're going to be probably less likely to be hit. But there's also going to be a crate dropped here, so I'm going to pick that up and see what that is. Northernlion inflicted mega damage, which apparently has given me an achievement. I believe the achievement is probably for catching the crate before it hits the ground. But in any case, we're about halfway through this level. I should definitely have, yes, the range necessary. In fact, I'm just going to back up even a little bit further. You know, even though these grill units are really cheap, they're also really effective. These have been, like, probably my strongest units next to the mortars. I'll talk about some of the other units as we move along. But what I was going to say is that this is a game that I've spent a lot of time kind of alt-tabbing out of, even as I've been playing it. Which is not necessarily to say it's a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly a game that, at least at my level, and again, we are playing on easy here, but at this level, you don't necessarily need to be watching it at all given times. Again, not necessarily a bad thing if you're into kind of like, you know, correspondence chess or something like that, but it is something that I think people deserve to know. This is not a game where you need to kind of pay attention to the screen at every single second, at least from, you know, the level that I'm playing it at, which again is quite low. I don't know if there is a competitive scene involved in this game, but in any case, we're just going to continue onwards here. We are on wave 13. I would say I've been playing pretty badly so far. Let's talk about some of the other units, just in case we have a chance to buy them, because we are going to gain more cubes as we go through more and more levels, or more waves, I should say, as you might expect. So Larry is like a slowing unit. Let's try to catch this one again before it falls. That one looks like more damage as well. Fantastic. So we inflicted damage, but that doesn't really do anything, because I believe it only hurts the active units, and they didn't have any right there. So I probably should have been more strategic and waited on that one. But yes, Larry is like a slowing turret, if you will, kind of like your standard ice turret, or, you know, a beam that slows enemies, if you will. I'm getting murdered by these rockets, so let's create a rocket of our own. This is Ricky the Rocket. And, you know, again, I kind of struggle with turret placement because the enemies obviously fire back. And this puts me in kind of a difficult position, but hopefully he'll be able to hit these enemies as they come out. He's getting hit, that's for damn sure. In fact, he's already like 71% hurt, 64% hurt. Maybe we'll drop him back even further. No point in upgrading this guy right now, I would say. In fact, I'm actually going to sell him to get the extra cubes because he was about to die. Let's create Sid. Sid is a sniper... Pardon me, something caught in my throat there. A sniper turret, and I'm calling them turrets because, you know, they basically do function as towers in a standard tower defense game. So he's got increased range and pretty solid damage as well, especially, you know, if we upgrade him and improve his range and his ability to do damage. Now, we are losing units at a pretty shocking pace here, so I'm hoping that this sniper turret is going to be able to hook us up something fierce. Why I can't create grills right now is beyond me. Let's create another one now that we can. And this should give me just a financial boost to my cubes, I believe. Sid should be able to handle most of this stuff, I hope, because otherwise we're not going to be in a good position. Let's create a Rocketeer quickly, because it looks like my sniper is possibly going to die. Yeah, we're going to sell him because otherwise he was going to die and I was going to get no benefit for it. But that Rocketeer did save us. I don't actually know if we're going to be able to beat this level, so, you know, what I said earlier about the game being somewhat easy, completely ignore that, please, because clearly I don't know what I'm talking about. Now, we do have 138 cubes here, so we should really start spamming some useful units, especially with the final wave about to come. Those are usually difficult. You know, if you've ever played a tower defense game before, you're probably familiar with that. The geography of the level does play an important role in this, by the way, so I don't know if I've got my Rocketeers necessarily placed in beautiful positions moving forwards. Let's put a flamethrower dude here. This is going to be our final wave. I think we'll succeed. We'll probably get a very shitty score, though. I would not be surprised if we ended up getting, you know, a bronze. Usually I'm at the gold level, but, you know, I'm talking while playing the game. By the way, that's not me bragging. There is a level above that. Obviously, as you might expect, it is platinum. So, I'm not necessarily a good Cubemen 2 player. Cubemen 2 player, I should say. Not to mention I am playing on easy. So as soon as this guy dies, that will be the end of this mission, and we will achieve victory. And so as you can see, you know, each level in Cubemen 2, at least so far, has gone for about 6 to 8 minutes. Apparently, I did get gold there. I certainly don't feel like I deserved it. Let's exit. And this kind of warrants maybe being a stopping point for the video. Not to end the video, but just to end my discussion of this, because this is the kind of the main mode of Cubemen 2. From a tower defense standpoint, it's kind of interesting because it does have a much wider scale, I guess you could say, on a map. You know, something like Go Home Dinosaurs, which I actually like from a tower defense standpoint a lot more than I like Cubemen 2. It takes place on a much, much smaller grid. This seems to be much kind of grander in scope, almost as if it's like a mixture of a strategy title, or like a real-time strategy title, and a tower defense game. That's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. I really think Go Home Dinosaurs is a better tower defense game than this, or at least a more enjoyable tower defense game, but it's totally possible that this might end up being a deeper tower defense game if you were into that. Now, I put that there, that kind of coda there, if you will, even though this isn't the end, because I think it's important to kind of bracket that off as this being the main defense campaign of Cubemen 2. We will also check out some of the kind of secondary or tertiary modes right now as well. So why don't we do a rescue mode, and then we'll see if there's any online community going here. Otherwise, maybe we'll play a little online, or online styled game like Capture the Flag or something against bots. So let's check out an early level here. Let's check out Pier, if I could click on that. And apparently I only got bronze on this on my first try, but let's go to our advanced level here. Actually, I think I have to click play first, and then we'll be able to choose, yes. Some levels do allow you to choose like different skins for the map, which is, you know, superficial. I don't necessarily think it adds anything. Let's play rescue here, and you'll see how this works, because I'm not sure I did a great job explaining it earlier. So our units are going to move from this turret to this turret, and enemies are going to spawn at this turret. So what we're going to want to do is make it impossible for those enemies to kill our units. So you can see how the enemies are coming in here. Oh, they're actually going the other way. They're going from the turret in the north to the turret in the south. So we're just going to spam some units here in the hopes that we'll be able to kill the enemies before the enemies manage to kill too many of our guys. And we'll be scored based on how we are doing so far. So, or how we're going to do overall. So I'm just going to try to adjust the map a little bit. As you might expect, my keyboard has actually gone out. So one complaint I do have about this, and the reason I think this mode is not necessarily as strong as the standard tower defense mode, is because the interface is a little bit confusing. Like, everybody is blue, basically, if they're on our side, which is totally fair. Like, don't get me wrong, I understand why that's the case, because, you know, it has to visually represent that we're all on the same team. Oh, are they actually... I think they are going to our existing base, which I'm not a big fan of. Let's just spam a like a flamethrower turret, which should be able to kill this guy. Yeah, like, I understand why everything is blue to represent that we're on the same team, and this might be very important if we were in a position where, you know, we had like 3 or 4 enemies. Okay, we got all of our units upgraded. That's awesome. Yeah, it might be very important if we were in a situation where we had, you know, 3 or 4 teammates or adversaries. But in our current situation where it's just 2v2, it kind of seems a little confusing because from my standpoint, I feel like I could have like blue for my offensive units and then like white for my kind of civilian units, for lack of a better word, and, you know, yellow or red or whatever color for the enemy. But as is, it makes it kind of difficult to keep an eye on where all of my units are at any given time. I don't know what the enemy has done here. I guess it's just decided, you know, like, enough is enough. Maybe I could throw down some more flamethrowers. Like, the enemy just didn't create any units for a long time there. So spamming flamethrowers right at the enemy base might be a good idea for us to kind of survive here. I don't know, it might be a terrible idea for us to survive. I'm just spitballing here, basically. Especially now as these units are coming back to our base. That worries me a little bit, but provided we can get some good crowd control going from the start here, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Let's go get this crate. That crate seems to be a big supply of cubes, not that we necessarily need it. We'll create a Rocketeer here at our own base as well. And we did... Oh, we are going to get it right here. Probably, yeah, 72 cubes. Pretty good. So, you know, I could just spam some more units. I'm just going to seriously, like, keep them completely hemmed in at their own base. Let's create a sniper unit here, because those are incredibly useful. Not sure if they can snipe uphill. Again, sometimes the geography of the map, or geometry of the map, I guess is the case might be, has an impact on how attacks work. It's kind of like an XCOM, if we're going to talk about it as, like, being superficially similar to some other game. Now, as these units fall back towards our base, I'm realizing that my flamethrowers are not necessarily good enough to get the job done here, so we might just want to toss down a rocket here. Might want to toss down some other units. I haven't talked about all of them so far. Laszlo is like a big laser beam. He has like a projectile beam weapon. Wally just becomes a wall, and Milo just becomes a mine. So these are, you know, if you played any tower defense games before in your life, you're probably familiar with these units, or really any kind of strategy title at all in your life. You're probably familiar with what's going on here. So we are going to just get this crate naturally. That's going to do some damage. Not that we necessarily needed it. Let's set up another sniper unit. Again, I'm not sure if these guys are actually able to do damage to the enemies on the tower here, but, you know, despite that, we're still doing totally fine here. We're rescuing a lot of civilians. We lost a lot in the early game, and, you know, I've only played 2 games of rescue so far, but this is how basically all of them have gone so far. I lose units in the early game, but pretty soon I start gaining cubes at a rate that makes it impossible for the enemy to come back. Again, we are playing on easy, so all of these criticisms might be, you know, totally moot if you play a little bit further into the game and feel competent, or confident, I guess, enough to kind of up the difficulty level. But, you know, the game starts you on easy, so I'm assuming that it starts you on easy for a reason, which, again, is not necessarily default the game for its difficulty, but merely to point it out for an audience that might be interested, for example. Now, we are about to finish this mission. I'm not sure if they have victory and failure conditions. We will see victory when we beat the level, but I assume anyway, because we're doing very well right now. But I think this is more of kind of like a score attacking mode, which in a way kind of makes me feel like it's an afterthought compared to the tower defense mode, and that's why I, again, kind of partitioned that tower defense part of this Let's Look At right at the start, so because I kind of feel like that's where most of the interest in this game is going to lie. Or at least that's the easiest way to describe this game to people. It's a mixture of Plants vs. Zombies and, I don't know, Unstoppable Gorge or something. That's a terrible example. We are going to rescue probably 50 civilians here is my guess. That might be good enough to get us a high score. Last time I played Rescue, I only rescued 47, I believe. Now, of course, every map has all of the game modes available, so there is a lot of variety within that context as well. So, the level's over. We got victory. We did rescue 51, actually. We might have been on normal difficulty there. I'm not totally sure. So, our score is pretty good. We killed 31 units. We saved 51 civilians. I have no idea how many civilians actually died. That might be something useful to put up here. Maybe not. I don't know. The developer probably knows more about that than me. And why don't we go with mini castles here, and we'll check and see if there's any kind of online mode going on. This just came out, so I can't necessarily fault the game. By the way, this is an example of how you can superficially change the kind of style of the map or the aesthetic. Why don't we check out Skirmish? Tower defense against bots, other humans, or both. Defend your base against attacking mobs. Send out troops to battle against the enemy hordes. Okay, so it's like an offensive tower defense mode, if that makes sense. And we'll just quickly go into advanced here and see if we can maybe queue up host public, maybe, and see if we can get into a game. I don't know if there will be anybody online. I kind of hope that there will be, but yeah, I always try to do these live so that you can get kind of a feel for how the online community is. So we'll just hang out here in a second. It looks like this is an AI. I don't want it to be an AI. I want to be playing against... okay, we could play against just humans. But, you know, I guess we'll leave it for another 15 seconds, and then we'll just start it against the AI, because I don't necessarily want to wait here for multiple minutes. But you might guess, you know, superficially, or at least with my gut reaction, is that this is probably not going to have a, like, superb online community, at least right off the bat here. I don't know how well Cubemen 1 did. It might have done very well if they're coming out with a sequel, but in any case, let's just start up here and we'll play a game against the AI, and then we will probably call it. So, this is a much bigger map. This is actually the map that I played Rescue on for the first time. So, I'm just trying to take a look at the map here and see where the enemies are and where I am. Okay, so I'm spawning civilians, and they are spawning enemy units, as you might expect, you know. So I'm going to start firing my own guys in here. And hopefully, let me just get a handle for map control here. The enemy does have a flint unit, which is going to be annoying as hell, but assuming we can kill his flint unit, then we will gain like 3 cubes, which might allow us... By the way, this is where the real-time strategy element becomes a little bit more heavily influenced as well, or it becomes a much clearer influence as well, because we're going to have to kind of not necessarily micro our units, but we could micro our units on a very, very novel, or novice level in order to get some extra cubes here. This guy is surprisingly not dead somehow, but he will be very shortly, unless somehow they created like an incredibly strong unit right off the bat. Now, I accidentally moved my unit way too far. I believe my flint unit actually died here. We might lose against the AI. For me, you know, I like the tower defense element of Cubemen, but I really don't have that much interest overall in these kind of adversarial modes. Like, if I want to play a strategy game, Cubemen 2 is not going to be like my go-to strategy game. And it's one of those things, I forget which video I was talking about it in, but I mentioned that, you know, having online multiplayer is not always an objective positive, at least in my opinion. I think it's a positive, A, if there's an online community, and B, if the game warrants it, just with like its standard kind of gameplay structure. And on a game like this, you know, does it warrant it? Maybe, but is the online community going to be there? Again, that's something I don't necessarily know. And, you know, maybe it is an objective positive in some people's eyes, because, you know, having it is better than not having the option, I guess. But for me, it doesn't really feel like it necessarily adds anything to this particular game. I'm gonna try to, like, take out the enemy of their own base now. I don't know, Zerg rush them or something like that, in the hopes that we'll be able to finish them off here. I don't know, what's this guy doing at our base? Yeah, of course he's out of range. I'm sure there's much more nuanced strategy that goes into a game like this. I'm just not totally familiar with it yet. I believe we must be earning crates at like a, or not crates, cubes at a steady pace here, because I don't think I'm gaining enough just by killing units, unless you get a lot of cubes just by killing these like enemy civilians that are coming in here. By the way, I have no idea what the score is right now. It looks like I'm losing. It must be like 100 points for every civilian that gets to the exit. So if that's the case, let's focus a little bit more on providing some defense here. I think I just killed a couple of units in the enemy base, but I also think that I am getting filleted by whatever this unit is right here. But I'm actually catching up on score, so maybe just spamming these flint units at the enemy base is going to work out okay for me. Atrax did find a stash of 40 cubes, though, which is going to allow him to build a mortar unit if he wants to, which have been kind of historically the best for me, I think. Now, actually, we should take this flamethrower dude right here and try to get him to attack this mortar. Because if I can do so... Where are you going, my friend? Oh, he can't come up there because that spot's already been taken by this grill unit. I gotcha. We'll try this up here, because I believe that the mortars should be weak against up-close combat, so the flamethrower might be good there. I don't know if there's a rock, paper, scissors style that goes on here. That's just my, my hunch, shall we say. So I am getting much closer to winning now. At least that's the way it appears to me. We are doing damage against this mortar. Whether or not I'm killing it kind of remains to be seen. He's definitely still hitting me at the same time, so I send another grill unit over there. And he does have kind of a point advantage against me. Now, I'm assuming we just go to wave 20 again, but I'm kind of finding this not really all that engaging. And they have actually spammed units at our base as well. I find it difficult to... I mean, I'm not good at strategy games in general for the most part, but I find it kind of difficult to figure out what the heck is going on here most of the time. That's not necessarily an interface issue. It might just be me saying, if you're like me and you find strategy games oftentimes inaccessible, this is not necessarily going to change your opinion, if you will. Let's try putting down some of these random units that are more kind of engineering or structural than anything else. Now the enemy has taken like a huge lead on me. So I actually feel like it might be in my best interest to concede. But we've created a mine. It blew up and didn't do anything, unfortunately. What if we put a wall down here? I'm interested to see how like enemy pathing would change. Let's put down a grill unit here. I think they have a rocketeer in our base, which is bad for business. And we'll just send our grill unit over here, I guess. They've got like crazy map control compared to me. So you can pan down a little bit. I do think the game looks kind of interesting. You know, inevitably there's going to be trolls in this video that are going to be like, herp the derp, why does everything have cubes now that Minecraft's successful? Well, you know, this is a visual style that was out long before Minecraft was out. But in any case, I think this game is basically, not Cubemen 2, but I think this match of Cubemen 2 is basically irredeemable for me. I'm pretty much screwed here, so I wonder if I could just pause it and then possibly exit. And basically take that as my resignation from that game. In any case, this is Cubemen 2. The one thing I haven't really added in this video is, you know, what is the difference between Cubemen 1 and Cubemen 2? And the reason I haven't talked about that is because I actually do not have much memory. So I'm kind of, not reviewing, but giving my impressions of Cubemen 2 as a standalone game. And, you know, from that, it's a $5 or a $6 or $8, depending on which part of the store page you want to believe, tower defense game, which is a little expensive in this day and age. And if you're just looking to play like a fun, straight tower defense game that isn't going to be too much of a drain on your intelligence, but is also, you know, engaging in its own right, I think Go Home Dinosaurs is a little bit more fun than this, not to be disrespectful to Cubemen 2. But Cubemen 2, you know, it has different elements that I think make it appeal to a different audience. It's much more strategical, it's much more focused on tactics and maybe being a little bit more active with moving your units around, because that's the, I guess, the unique element of Cubemen versus any other tower defense games, is once you place a unit, you can modify it. You can not only upgrade it and sell it, which is pretty standard, but you can also move it around the map. It's not necessarily an aesthetic that necessarily appeals to me all that much, but if you're watching this and it appeals to you, then you know the cost of entry here is pretty low. Don't necessarily look to this game to have a huge online community, despite the fact that it does have online multiplayer. I would be a little bit more realistic about that fact. And if you think that you could have fun playing this against the AI or just working your way through the campaign, then, well, again, the campaign is basically just a series of levels with no kind of linking narrative, but that's not necessarily a deal breaker for a lot of people. I have mixed impressions on Cubemen 2 is probably the easiest way to put it. Complicated opinions, but in any case, there will be a link to Cubemen 2 in the store, or in the store page for Cubemen 2 in the video description here, if you are interested, so go ahead and click that if you want to pick up the game on Steam. But as always, thank you guys for watching regardless, and I will see you next time.